V Gates, as Zenon. What's up, guys? Gonna be working on getting the German list done today. I wanted to go over a couple quick things, and then we'll switch over to another segment of the video where we'll actually be looking at the army list I'm going to create for the Germans. This is the book you need. I have several other army books, but this for the Germans is like the German Army List Bible. You know, it's Eastern Front. Honestly, the battles with the Soviets are, in my opinion, some of the funnest battles to fight. The last several months, I've been pretty much doing Germans versus Americans. I'd finished an American army, and we've been, toying with different scenarios and stuff. So we're definitely going to be building out of the Grey Wolf book. And a couple of quick things I wanted to point out when you're building an army list is there's kind of really two approaches when you're building a list, and that is, one is historical accuracy for the battles that you're recreating. The second is just made up battles. I had a subscriber put a comment on my recent video that the table I have built out here is for, basically it's a bombed out factory complex, somewhere in the Eastern Front. And I said, oh, it's kind of like being in Stalingrad, and he pointed out that, and rightly so, that the Panther really didn't fight in Stalingrad. It was mostly maybe some Tigers, those were kind of rare, but mostly it was the Panzer IVs. Most of the fighting that was being done with artillery and infantry, because it was such close-in fighting. A lot of the tanks they brought in to do street fighting were flamethrower tanks, and then they had a lot of problems with tank assaults, being in such confined areas. Really, city streets really aren't suited for tank warfare. So tanks are really an open country fighter. So that's kind of the way to approach it. We play both, and basically what my response to this guy was, and I appreciate his comment, he was right, but I want to bring out I want to bring out the big toys. I want to bring out the Panthers and the King Tigers to play. My son, of course, he has a Soviet army. He always wants to play the IS-2s and the Su-152s, the big dogs that they had. The problem is both those tanks, or all four of those tanks and the tank destroyer, were later in the war, which puts you in Poland, maybe Ukraine, as the Soviets came into up close to the German border later in the war. The IS-2s were really more prominent. Of course, he wants to always play IS-2s, which I can't blame him. I mean, his only other thing is to mask me with T-34s, which you can do. The problem with historical battles is it's really hard to overcome the real outcome of the battle. Typically, when you're doing Germans versus Soviets, the Soviets usually have almost twice as much materiel thrown at you, and the Germans are typically fighting in a defensive posture. So you're usually, if you're recreating historical battles, you're usually looking at the Germans defending bridgeheads, riverheads, strategic points that they were trying to stop the Soviet advance, waiting for this, Hitler's secret weapons to kick in, which we all know ultimately would have been the bomb. And they were very close. I mean, it was within weeks of them getting the bomb. It was being developed, as we know now, in Austria, in underground bunkers. And when they surrendered, they were literally within days, possibly as long as weeks, away from having a bomb. And that would have completely changed the outcome of the war. I mean, they would have blown up a couple Russian divisions, and it would have been all over. Just looking to make sure I have anyone springing on me here in the office. going back to my point with the historical battles, sometimes they can be kind of boring a little bit. You're trying to be very tedious with recreating the exact battle, you know, laying out the river or the river heads and kind of totally recreate the terrain. Obviously going through the army lists are going to be pretty historically accurate, the things that the divisions and the companies that the Germans and the Soviets were fielding and the units that you could bring to bear. So, and there's a place for that, and this certainly is a historical miniatures game, and that is something to definitely do, because it is interesting to try to figure out if you can change what history would have done. The Germans could have actually overcome the Soviets in a particular battle that they lost, and you could argue, well, that was up to the roll of the dice, or was it really strategy? So anyway, so the games we tend to end up morphing into are pretty much made up games. We'll go with a point value, let's say 3,000 points, which is what we're going to do for this battle. That makes it a lot more interesting. It's a high points, we have a lot of models, so we like to put a lot of toys on the board, so you have a lot of cool stuff you can do. Yeah, the battles can last for a couple of days, you may have to play them out over a couple of weekends, but who cares? We've got a dedicated area, no one messes with it. We can stop the fight, make a note of whose turn it is next, and come back, because we love these bigger battles and the longer battles, and they're more pitched. We do tend to have objectives in these type of battles. The battle we're setting up now will be 3,000 points each, and it will be a capture the headquarters battle. Sometimes we do objectives. We'll have some buildings that are marked with objective models or markers, and your deal is you go and you occupy that objective for one turn, and you've captured that objective, and you get the points. Or you can just say there's 3 objectives. If you capture 2 out of the 3 objectives, you win the game. So there's all kinds of different things you can do. We tend to go, you know, here's your historical branch of choice, and here's your non-historic branch of choice. We've come to find over playing this game for 4 years now that the non-historical is usually funner. And then there's times where we just feel like, hey, let's recreate this battle just because we're interested in it. The Bastogne, and you know, certain historical battles are very interesting, and some of the army books cater to that. I've got one out here that I just bought recently, Battle of the Bulge, and it's basically gives the American and German army lists, and it's very historically accurate. So those were fun to play. So this battle, though, we're building this list is for a not 100% historically accurate. It's a fun game. We're going to say it takes place somewhere in the Ukraine. It's a factory complex that was bombed out. The Soviets are basically moving through the area, and the Germans are basically hitting them with a counterattack. They're going to be trying to take the Soviet headquarter post, and they're going to try to take the German headquarter post, and that will be the objective of the game. So I will cut next. My next scene is going to be looking at the book. I'm pretty sure I've decided I'm going to go with the Heavy Tank Company. That way I can bring my King Tigers. But if you're into Germans, you're starting to collect Germans, you definitely want to hunt this book down. It's got some excellent historical stuff in it. It's got some excellent army lists. And my son, and well, I'll build the list. It's a list he'll approve, of course, but we'll be building it out of the Red Bear, which is the Soviet equivalent of this book. So we'll be right back, and you'll get to see how we make a good army list. Okay, we're back, guys. I'm gonna studying the Grey Wolf book here some more. I talked in the last segment about doing the heavy tank platoon, the Schwer tank platoon. Looking at the list here, I'm going to say it's not really feasible, and I'll show you why here in a minute, but that's part of learning the game, learning all the different kinds of lists that are out there. my goal was I want to do some King Tigers and some Panthers because I'm going up against some heavy Soviet stuff. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it. So I honed in yesterday on the heavy tank company, and it comes out that there's too many restrictions. You're kind of really locked in. It's going to end up being a 4,000 to 5,000 point battle. I'll go up to 4. If we're going to do 5, we're going to need some multiple players. It's going to be a pretty long game, more than likely. So I'll show you here what I'm looking at. But getting on the Flames of War website, I wanted to kind of show you some stuff I'm working on. Turn off my lamp here. It's too much glare. Let's go to what I'm probably going to be using as my army builder. Now this is Army Builder. It is a way of creating your lists. It's probably like 40 bucks or so. But this is my heavy Panzer platoon that it pulled up, and I started toying with this, and to be quite honest with you, this just isn't going to work. So let me show you why. And if you read this box, it'll be in all your army lists. You must field 1 platoon from each box shaded black. Must field 1 platoon from each box. And if you look at this breakdown on the diagram, that is clearly every box is black, which means I have to take 1 platoon from every single box on this list, which means with my King Tigers down here, I can take 1. Sure, I could make 1 tank a platoon, but that's kind of cheesy, kind of corny. But you're still going to be at, once you get to 4, once you do your headquarters, and once you do these 3, I'm going to end up having to take Tigers. So my only choices in a heavy tank platoon is Tigers or King Tigers. There's no other options. So for this to be a legal list. So I'm not going that route. It's going to end up restricting me too much. And actually, just 1 page over, you come to find the Panzer Company. Okay, we got the Panzer Company. It gives me a lot more options. Okay, this is your standard tank company from the Wehrmacht. Okay, so we've got some black boxes, platoons I'm going to have to take. I have to take a headquarters, which we come over here to my headquarters, and I've got 3 choices, and this is exactly what I want. Panthers. I could do 2 Panthers for 375 points. Will be my headquarters. That puts 2 Panthers on the board. Okay, and then I'm going to come back over here, and I've got to do 2, for sure I have to do 2 tank platoons off of these. Now what are my choices within the tank platoon? I can do a Panzer platoon on page 73 or a Panther platoon on page 74. Let's see, what am I going to choose? Panther, because your Panzer platoon choice is right here, and I don't want that up against Russians. I could if I was going up against T-34s or maybe the KV ones, something like that. I could hack that. I could probably duke it out with them. But I'm knowing my son and knowing what he's going to want to bring. He's going to be bringing some IS-2s, and I don't want to play with them. And I don't want to limit myself to just Panthers. I need to throw some King Tigers in there. So this limits me on this platoon to Panzer IVs or Stugs. Right? Stugs are alright. They're okay. They're really kind of limited. I'm not a big Stug fan from hard experience. So I'm going to end up fielding a couple of, 3 or 4 tank Panther platoons. I have enough tanks to do that. So that gives me a sizable Panther force. But then the rest of these are grays. The gray boxes allow me to pick and choose.
because it says right here clearly that I may field one platoon from each box shaded gray. So I'm going to hone in right on this gray box, because what does that tell me? Heavy tank platoon. There's where my King Tigers can come in. So that allows me to work some King Tigers into my list. I'm still bringing in my backbone, which is my Panthers. Okay. Now I got some models here on my table. Now this is the Jagd Panther. Jagd Panther. Okay, it's a good tank. It's not on this particular list. What else do I have here? Ah, this little beauty. I have two of these in my collection. That is the infamous Elephant, and I would love to bring my elephants. They're not very mobile. They're big, heavy, slow tanks, they're tank destroyers. But I tell you, you take this sucker and you can park him somewhere towards the back of the board, or in the the back segment of the board, with his 40-inch range, and this sucker is going to do some damage. Problem is, I was wanting to bring my my Elephant, but I don't know that I can. I'm looking in here. I think I can. Oh my gosh, what's this? Oh, Tank Hunter Platoon, page 163. Well, let's go to, guys, to 163. So I'm thinking, from experience, I love my elephants. So I'm going to go to 163 and see what we find. And this is the beauty and the joy of building army lists. Is coming in with an idea, and sometimes to make the list legal, you got to kind of conform a little bit. What have we here? Oh, 2 elephants, 600 points. So I know right away I'm going to have to change my original assessment of 3,000 points. I'm going to have to bump that up to probably 4,000 points to bring all the toys I want to bring. So we're already looking at bringing in, at least 10 Panthers. Okay, at least 10 Panthers. Probably, I have 4 King Tigers in my collection. I probably should build on that a little bit. I really would like to someday play that heavy tank list, the whole thing, just for the sake of doing it, because I would love to field that many platoons of King Tigers. We're talking 4 King Tigers. What was it? 3 platoons plus your headquarters of King Tigers. It would be ridiculous, but that's for another day. I only have 4 King Tigers in my collection right now, so this other list will work fine. So I'll be able to have a solid King Tiger platoon. I'll have 2 solid Panther platoons. I'll have my 2 elephants, and then looking back into the list, we will be able to field my Panzer Grenadiers. And then we'll look here on the list some more. We'll go back to page 72, sorry. And you can see here, get the glare off the screen. I can choose infantry, I can choose reconnaissance, I can choose more infantry. Hey, what do we have here? Heavy Panzer Grenadier platoon. Oh, where's my finger? There it is. Alright, so I got my platoon of Panzer Grenadiers for seizing the objective, which is to take out the headquarters. Okay, so we're definitely throwing them in there. I remember what I mentioned in my other video, my Fallschirmjäger platoon I can throw in there. Now at this stage of the war, guys, they weren't really doing upon study. I find that they were not the Fallschirmjägers, in case you didn't know, is the German equivalent of the airborne division. The problem is Hitler had squandered so much of his air force on the Battle of Britain and some of the actions in Greece and in northern Africa, that by the middle part to the later part of the war, the Fallschirmjägers, although they were crack trained specialized troops, they didn't really have the ability to conduct a lot of airdrops. So the Fallschirmjägers end up being kind of morphed into this, you could think of them like a ranger company, as equivalent to the Americans. Basically what we consider today as like special forces. They were highly selected, highly trained, and I have a Fallschirmjäger company that I've built and painted. I've never played, and I'm going to work them into this game. So those guys are going to be fearless veterans, and they're going to kick some butt. I'm going to just keep a platoon of them just for coming in and kicking some butt. Alright, so this is the fun of it. This is the total fun of this game. Half of the fun of the game is building army lists and taking some time, sipping some coffee, sipping a beer, and just looking over the list and coming up with ways that you can beat your enemy with your list. So I want to encourage you, younger players, you don't have a very big force, but as you go on with my 2 army bags I have out here, as you build and build and build and build, you'll get to the point where I'm at, where you literally can just sit back and pick and choose your list, and not really be limited. Now in this case I kind of limited myself. I don't have enough King Tigers to field that kick butt heavy tank company, but one day I will. That gives me an idea of something I might want to do in the future. So let's get back to this list here. So again, I was mentioning in my other video, I wanted to try to use my Nebelwerfers, my rocket launchers, as smokers, to throw smoke bombardments. Right, is one of my tactics I'm going to try. So throwing a smoke bombardment and maybe doing a fast attack up one of the flanks and taking the headquarters. I'm definitely going to do an artillery battery, probably my 152 millimeters. But you see there's a huge selection, even an armored train selection. So this list is amazing. I'm really going to have to, it's not my Panzergrenadiers technically, but it is a kick butt panzer company. So that's what we're going to probably go with here, guys. I will work on my actual list. I am going to come back here to the army builder I was showing you, and I think I can close this out by saying I want a new list. Do I want to save the old list? No. And let's see if I can choose the Panzer Company. German Panzer Company. So here we go. We got our Panzer platoon. I've got my heavy Panzer platoon. So yeah, pretty sure I got everything that I need on this, on my army builder. The other thing is, if you don't have the army builder, that's fine. I don't use it a lot. You've seen some of my other videos where I'm seriously, I just take I have a little leather folder that I use that has some legal paper in it, and I'll just go in with a pencil and work out the list. You don't have to have a computer program, just a paper and a pencil, and work down your list. Try to keep it neat, you know, organize it, maybe even draw a line across each separate platoon, and then run out the total to the side, what the point value is, and then at the bottom you can total out your points. But I can tell right away, to really do this right, to give it justice, you know, we're going to have to bump this up to about 4,000 points. And then, even as a seasoned gamer, a guy who's got a lot of his collection, I have another goal in mind of my heavy tank company. Yeah, someday I'm going to put that battle up for you guys to watch, and it's going to be kick. It's going to be total warfare with King Tigers. Here's another thing to throw out to you guys. I was talking earlier about, you've got some historical battles, and you can just do some fun battles, which is really what this is morphing into. Is and the guy at Beasts of War, one of the guys at Beasts of War had touched onto this. Oriskany had done a alternative ending to World War II where the Soviets actually beat the Germans, and then the Soviets attacked the Americans, right? Just like Patton used to say, he said, "Give me 2 divisions and in a month, and I'll go over there and I'll kick the Soviets' butts," because he knew we would be dealing with them sooner or later being communists. That's another story. But you can play out scenarios like that, making the Soviets fight against Americans, Americans fight against the British, right? They get in a squabble after the war and they end up fighting each other over Western Germany. There's all kinds of stuff we can do with this game, guys. I mean, it's sky's the limits. Even Warren showed you can even bring in a UFO saucer for the German side or whatever, and the Germans could have a secret weapon come into the game. So I want to throw that out to you. I'm going to go ahead and throw these 2 segments up for today. Once I get my list finalized for the Germans and I actually pick the order, because I'll create a list, I'll go to my army shelf and I'll actually custom pick the order of what I'm going to field for this battle. I'll line them up onto the battlefield undeployed, show you what I ended up finalizing and coming to. Then we'll come back and we'll start making our Soviet army. Ciao.